Hey Latin learners, we've got big plans in store for the rest of our town, but if we want more houses, we need a space to put them. Let's expand a bit, and then maybe build a cool watermill as well.
Henle Vocabulary Lesson 24, Part 1. The first word we come across is qui, quai, quod, which is a word you're going to be learning quite a bit about in this lesson, and it means who, which, or that. And other variations, whose, or whom. Our next word is auxilium, auxilii. Now, auxiliary is an actual word in English, and it's used to describe someone who is there to help. So if you can remember the word auxiliary, it might help you remember that this word means help or aid. And now if you have more than one auxilium, someone who is there to help, auxilia, auxiliorum, then what is that? Well, that is reinforcements. So you can see that basically what they're saying is if you want to make help or aid plural, then don't say helps or aids because, well, that's just awkward. Say reinforcements because that's what we're trying to say. We're talking about backup here. Alright, our next word is memoria, memoriae. This word's pretty easy to remember because, well, you can kind of see the word in the Latin word. It means memory. Our next word is memoria combined with teneo, tenere, tenui, tentus. So if you have these two words together, then this means keep in memory or remember. Now this word is actually pretty easy to remember if you can remember the literal translation of these two words together. So memoria we just saw means memory, right? Teneo means I hold. So if you hold a memory, what are you actually doing? Well, you are keeping something in your memory. You're holding it there, or you're just remembering it. Our next word is add. This word's pretty easy to remember just because of the sheer amount of times you actually end up using it in Latin. It means to, until, or at, and it goes with accusative. Also sometimes goes with for, and you'll see a couple of adjectives we're about to learn where it combined with that adjective it means for. This is a very directional preposition, so if you can remember that it kind of has that movement, then it also helps you remember that this means to, until, at, and sometimes for. Alright, our next word is usque. This word is pretty easy to remember just because it rhymes with its meaning. Usque means all the way. Our next word is pervenio, pervenire, perveni, perventum. This word is pretty easy to remember if you can see the literal translation of the word, because we have two words here combined. We have venio, which remember means I come, and then per, which means through. So I come through. So if you can imagine yourself coming through a gate or coming through someone's door into their house, you'll know you have arrived. Our next word is pertineo, pertinere, pertinui. This word is also kind of a combined word type of thing. We have teneo, which means I hold, and then per, through. I hold through. So if something holds through, it is consistent, right? This word's a little bit tricky because its meanings are a little bit strange. It means pertain to or stretch to. So pertain to is kind of already a big word in English. Pertain just means it has to do with something. So if you and your friends are having a conversation about flowers and say you want to start talking about roses, well, roses pertain to the conversation about flowers because they are in the category of flowers. So that's kind of what this word means, is pertain. You can also kind of see that word, that English word in the word, pertain, pertineo. This word also means stretch to, and that's usually used in the context of bridges when they're stretching to the other side. So try to think of the word pertain and also the literal I hold through, and hopefully you can remember that this means pertain to or stretch to. Our next word is paratus. Aum is an adjective, and you can kind of see what it means right there in the Latin word. It means prepared. And notice we have this for, prepared for. That's because this adjective is often used with the preposition ad, and the ad is usually translated as for in this context. So remember when we learned add, it said for with adjectives, with some adjectives, like this one, paratus, prepared for. And then we have utilis. This word is easy to remember if you can think of a utility tool, like a hammer. Utility tools are called utility tools because they are very useful. This word is also another word that can be used with add, and the add will be translated as for. Useful for, but that's not always the case. That's just sometimes. That's why we have the parentheses there. Nox noctis. This word is easy to remember if you can think of the word nocturnal. If something is nocturnal, then it stays awake at night and sleeps during the day. Nox noctis means night. Deduco, deducere, deduxi, deductus. This word is easy to remember if you think of the word deduce. That's where this word comes from. If you're deducing something, you are thinking through it logically, which means your brain is kind of leading you somewhere, right? And that's what this word means. It means lead or lead away. Now another easy way to remember this is just to kind of see it in its parts. So we have duco, which is a word you've already learned, which just means lead. Duco, ducere, duxi, ductus, but it also has de on the front of it. De means away or down from usually. So I lead away. Our next word is cognosco, cognoscere, cognoi, cognitus. So with this one, you can see this cog right here. A cog is a gear, right, that spins. And so if you can imagine the cogs in your head spinning, you'll know you are learning or finding out something. Those gears are turning. Our next word is nuntius, nuntii. This word is a little tricky only because it means message or messenger. So you'll have to be careful when translating to decide, is it the actual person that has the message or the message itself? Our next word is natura. You can see what this word means in Latin. It's pretty easy to guess. And you're right, it means nature. Our next word, sort of, is que. This is basically like an add-on. So this little dash means that this que goes on the end of other words. So you'll see this at the end of pretty much anything to mean and. So you'll see a Latin word, like a noun, for example, and then another Latin word with que on the end of it, and that means that this que is combining those two nouns together. So be careful because this que comes at the end of the second word, and it's combining that second word with the first noun. So for instance, if you have a farmer and a poet and you want to combine them, you could say agricola and then poetae, which means the farmer and the poet. So you can do that without even using et. It means and. Next we have inuria. This word is easier to remember if you don't see this as injury, but more if you see the jury in there, because then you'll think of justice. And if you think of justice and this in, usually when in is at the front of a word, then it kind of means the opposite or contradictory or not something. So this means injustice or not justice or wrong. Injustice or wrong. Our next word is diutius. Now we've learned a word before, diu, which just means long. Well, this word is a little bit longer than diu, and that's actually what it means, longer. Diutius. Our next word is kind of the opposite of that one, facilius. It means more easily. And you'll see how we're going to use these words in this upcoming exercises. Our next word is apropinquo, apropinquare, apropinquavi, apropinquatus. Kind of a mouthful, but you can see the word in this Latin word. You can see the word approach, and then it kind of goes nuts. So this means draw near to or approach. Alright, and then we have wasto, wastare, wastawi, wastatus. This word is easier to remember if you pronounce the word with this V as that W sound. That's how most Latin words are supposed to be pronounced, but it helps you remember the word in this case. Because instead of thinking of vast as in very big, you'll remember waste, wasto, waste. Lay waste or ravage, which basically means destroy. And then we have custos, custodis. This is easy to remember if you think of a custodian, which is a guardian or someone who takes care of something. Custos means guard, as in the guard of a prison, for example.
Ah, this watermill is looking so cool. I think it adds nice life to this side of the harbor. And while I was busy on the outside, my sister was busy getting the inside all ready for someone to live in. Let's take a cool little tour.
Okay, let's see if we can go back through these vocab words and see if we can remember what they mean. Alright, our first word is qui, quai, quod. You remember what this one means? This word means who, and then different variations of it are whose, whom, which, or that. Then we have auxilium, auxilii, which means help or aid. And then the plural version of the same word, auxilia, auxiliorum, which means reinforcements. Then we have memoria, memoriae, which means memory. Memoria combined with teneo. Don't forget the literal translation. I hold a memory, right? This means keep in memory or remember. And then we have ad, the good old preposition, which means to, until, at, and sometimes for, combined with some adjectives. Then we have usque, which means all the way. Pervenio, pervenire, perveni, perventum. This one means arrive. And then we have pertineo, pertinere, pertinui. This is the tricky one. It means pertain to or stretch to. Then we have paratus, which means prepared for. And then we have utilis. Note that this is a third declension adjective. This means useful for. Nox noctis, which means night. Deduco, deducere, deduxe, deductus, which means lead or lead away. Then we have cognosco, cognoscere, cognoli, cognitus, which means learn or find out. Then we have nuntius, nuntii. Remember, this has two meanings, messenger or message. Then we have natura, naturae, nature. And then we have que, which is just a little add-on. Remember, it means and. Then we have inuria, inuriae, which means injustice or wrong. Diutius, which which means longer. Is it a little longer to say than the diu, which means long. And then we have facilius, which means more easily. And apropinquo, which means draw near to or approach. Notice that this often goes with add or the dative case. Draw near to something or approach something else. Careful with that one. Then we have wasto, wastare, which means lay waste or ravage. And finally, custos, custodis, which means guard.
Wow, I'm so proud of what we've accomplished. I'm so excited for all the fun builds to come and all the new vocabulary to memorize. Thanks for joining us again. See you next time.